Hey guys, what is going on? So I wanted to talk about how you can spend more time during a productive bulking phase, which is going to allow you to put on more muscle tissue during your bulk. And this kind of comes down to realizing each phase of a bulking and cutting cycle. And I think there's one phase that people overlook that doesn't really have a name, but if you understand that that's going to be part of the process, I think you can really maximize your gains. Okay, so let's go over kind of a typical bulk cut timeline and then see where we're actually going to be gaining this muscle tissue. Okay, so first, this timeline is going to be under a couple assumptions. One is going to be bulking and cutting is a great way to put on muscle. And then the second is going to be a higher calorie surplus is going to be a little bit more anabolic than a lower calorie surplus. Meaning, if you're at a bulk and put on 1 pound a week with a 500 calorie surplus versus half of that, you would gain more size and strength. That's the assumption. Now we can debate on that in another video, but that's just going to be the assumptions leading into this. Okay, so let's say most people are willing to put on maybe 25 pounds over the course of a bulk. So you put on 1 pound a week, it gives you 25 weeks, which is about 6 months. You put on 25 pounds, and let's say it takes you 15 weeks to cut the fat and come out after 40 weeks with another like 5 pounds of muscle. Great, maybe it takes a little bit longer to put on 5 pounds depending on the person, but that's just kind of, for the sake of simplicity, that is the math. So when are you actually putting on this muscle tissue? Is it during the 15 weeks where you're in a catabolic environment and you're cutting and you're losing weight? No. Now, it's possible to put on muscle during a cut, but for all intents and purposes, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about bulking and putting on muscle, size, strength during this bulk. Okay, so we do that for 25 weeks, then we cut for 15 weeks, 40-week cycle, come out bigger and stronger than we were at the start. Now, how long, when you start your next bulk, how long is it going to take for you to get back to those peak levels in terms of size and strength? Usually it takes a little bit of time because you're operating at a lower body fat percentage, and you have just been in a catabolic environment. You likely lost a little bit of size and strength. So it'll take you some time to get back to those all-time levels, and then hopefully the tail end of your bulk, you're putting on new muscle tissue and new strength. So let's say that this is a 12-week process, a little bit less than 3 months. This is kind of what I found to be true for me. Maybe for other people it's longer, maybe for other people it's shorter, but let's just say we have 25 weeks of building muscle, 15 weeks of best case scenario, not building muscle, but probably losing some. And then of those 25 weeks, there's about 12 weeks where we're not really putting on muscle because we're actually in that buffer period that I like to call it. So that's kind of the third phase of the bulking and cutting process that people don't really talk about. So the reality is you're putting on your 5 pounds of muscle, whatever it is, in 13 weeks out of 40. That's about a third. So you're putting on all of your muscle, for the most part, during only 1/3 of the process. So would it not logically make sense if we could extend this process, the productive bulking period? So not just extending your bulk in general, but extending the, actual beneficial period, the productive period of bulking. If we can extend that, we should be getting more muscle gains. Okay, so this is a theory that I had a while ago, a couple years ago, and I put it to the test. And my most recent bulk, not the one that I'm currently doing, but this is true of this one as well, although we'll have to finish it to really kind of analyze that. But my most recent bulk, best bulk, most muscle tissue that I've gained in my entire adult life. So I am 26 right now, so I've been lifting for a while, since I was 12 years old. I put on the most muscle tissue, most strength, everything in the shortest period of time by doing this process, by extending that bulk and actually being in that productive period of bulking for a longer period of time than I was anticipating. So I did that, and now I'm doing that same process again during this bulk, and it seems to be going pretty well again. That being said, I'm only probably a month or so into this productive bulking process. So as opposed to being like, oh man, I'm fat now, I need to cut. If I've only had 1 month of true productive bulking, this is where the real muscle is gained. This is the money-making months. These ones where I'm fatter than I want to be and I don't want to keep bulking. This is where I need to keep bulking. And this is why I think people, they need to get out of their comfort zone. They need to put on a little bit more fat mass than they're willing. And this is not a blanket statement. Some people have struggled with obesity before. Some people cut a lot of weight. Some people aren't all that muscular. So my point is not to get everybody to do these super long bulks and get up to 30% body fat. It's not my goal. The idea is that if you are, more advanced, you're struggling to put on muscle, you want to accelerate that process because it's relatively slow when you get more advanced. Treating the bulk as something that you really have to commit to and that you really have to push on and get out of your comfort zone, that could potentially double your gains during that process by extending that bulk just a little bit longer. Okay, so if I were to give the example, and I know that there's nuance to the situation, but if I were to do that 25-week bulk, 15-week cut, and I did that whole process and I gained 5 pounds of muscle, and like I said, if I gain 5 pounds during that 13-week period, realistically, that second half of that bulk, what if I were to then extend and push further for another 13 weeks? I'd be going, as opposed to 40 weeks, I'd be doing 53 weeks, so just about a year. So I wouldn't be doubling the duration, but I would be doubling the duration of productive bulking. So it's not to say that I'll gain 10 pounds of muscle as opposed to 5, but it could be 8 pounds of muscle as opposed to 5, and you're doing it in a much shorter cycle, right? Because you're just extending one cycle. And so yes, when you cut, you're going to have to take a little bit more time to cut, but that buffer period is not really going to be extended either. And eventually you're going to be able to string a couple of those together, and that's going to equal out to a very large difference in gain. So I would say for me, over the past 2 bulks, I've been taking this process, and the amount of muscle tissue that I've added is going to make a substantial difference in something that I would have otherwise not achieved for a much longer period of time. Okay, so this just means that we need to actually extend the bulk a little bit longer than we would otherwise like. And again, this is not, for everybody. That there's nuance to the situation. It depends on where you're at. But I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to get to 20% body fat. I don't want to, get fat. And I think a lot of people underestimate their body fat. That's a whole nother discussion. But the point is that pushing a little bit further and getting a little bit more outside of your comfort zone than you otherwise would be willing to has exponential gains, because you're getting, that rate of progress that you would otherwise have if you were to spread out, like I said, that 5 pounds of muscle over 40 weeks. It becomes much less of a, rate of progress than if you were to extend that bulk period a little bit more. You would be gaining more muscle tissue per month on average. And realistically, during that bulk, when it really matters, you're going to be hammering home everything and building as much muscle as possible. So I really think that warming up to this idea, it doesn't mean that you need to go to 30% body fat your next bulk, but slowly, every bulk, pushing a little bit further than you would otherwise like. Again, you don't have to double your bulking time period overnight. You can do another 3 weeks, another 4 weeks on your next bulk, and just keep pushing the envelope a little bit. And especially as you get more advanced, you're going to need all the calories, all the extra time bulking that you can get. And as you have more muscle tissue, that fat mass is going to look better on your body versus somebody who is smaller. So I get comments all the time. I'm about 270 right now. People are like, wow, you're really lean for 270. The reality is that I'm not that lean. I actually have a lot of fat on me. It's just that relative to the overall muscle mass that I have, it doesn't look as bad as it would have if I was like 100 pounds less, right? So we really want to grow into that over time. This is, again, more of an advanced technique, something that you want to do when you really are struggling to gain weight. And let's say you're, at a period where you're only putting on like, a couple pounds of muscle during your bulks. If you could go from 2 to 3 pounds during your bulk to like 4 to 6 pounds, that's substantial. That's a huge, huge difference. And it really makes the most impact in terms of like relative importance as you get more advanced. So yes, this can speed up the process. You are going to have to deal with a little bit more fat accrual, but I think that's kind of a necessary evil. And that's kind of the point of bulking in the first place, is you are sacrificing being lean all the time for more gains. And this is just taking it up one more notch. Okay. So hopefully this can help some people. This has really, really accelerated my gains in recent years. And, I just really wanted to share that, and hopefully this can help some of you guys out. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I'll keep you updated, and I'll talk to you soon.